Well, I know that I've got a couple hours here, so hopefully, you got your coffee and you've gone to the restroom and everything, so I'm just kidding. I will not talk that long. I'm a short-winded person. Anyway, this is my first IoT evolution, and I've really enjoyed the show. Some themes that I've seen that have really been outstanding and really resonated with me is, one is fog computing. So I kept hearing that term, and I was able to sit through some of those sessions, and it really is interesting. It kind of plays into exactly what Ken was saying about the, bringing more intelligence to the edge and more actions to the edge. The other thing is security. Security, obviously there's been complete tracks when it comes to security here. And then the other thing is analytics, and I think all of these things play big time into what, I'm essentially going to talk about. But before I get into that, I just kind of wanted to give you a real quick history of my background. I actually started in the mid-'80s as a control engineer, and I was able to work on a lot of things in the steel and paper industry, in the utility market, a lot of controls, instrumentation, and controls. And so programmable logic controllers, PID loops, and all that kind of stuff. And about in the mid-'90s, what I did is I made a change, and I went and I got involved into communications. I was working for a utility, and they were actually installing a fiber optic loop to connect all their substations. So I had a chance to get into communications without having to really make the change of going from one company to the next. And so that was pretty cool. And eventually what it did is it led me to Motorola, where I was involved in designing and building and selling voice trunking systems and also mobile data systems. And that's when technologies like IDEN started coming out and this kind of thing. And what I found is a lot of the things that we were talking about in the control world were now translating into the wireless world. And so we started connecting SCADA devices, we started connecting meters and that sort of thing. And it was really cool for me because, I had that background, and then I was able to get inside into this wireless world. And have you ever heard the term of even a blind hog can find an acorn? You haven't? Okay, well, it's a Southern saying. And that's me. I'm a blind hog that found an acorn. I had no idea that those two things were going to come together like that. So it's been real fortunate for me, and I really, truly enjoyed it. And it's been amazing. I can't believe how much all of this has come. That we have, the IoT evolution and things like that. So what I was going to do today is talk a little bit about some of, at least from my perspective or a carrier's perspective, on some of the barriers to IoT that we see. So really what we see is 5 different things. And one of them is, providing connectivity to a large pool of devices. Obviously, privacy and security are huge things, and I think that that's just been reaffirmed by what I see at this show. The fragmented platforms, there's so many different platforms that are out there. And then you got the billions of devices that need to be connected, right? And they create billions of records. And then the complex vertical solutions. Not everyone is always, not all companies have the resources to put together the complex vertical solutions. So when I talk about providing connectivity to increasing pool of devices, there's so many choices out there, right? You have your low power local area networks with Z-Wave, Bluetooth, low energy, Wi-Fi, and that sort of thing. You've got your low power local wide area networks, with Sigfox and LoRa, and of course cellular. So, all this stuff can be very confusing to our customers on which is the right way to go. Obviously, when you think about privacy and security, big issue there. Now we have this GDPR in Great Britain or in the UK about protecting information. Obviously, we've always had HIPAA, and we've had, PCI compliance. Those are location. And then security, Ken touched on it with the Mariah virus. Just last week, we had this thing with, Smeltdown and Spectre, these other things that are coming out like that. So that's a huge concern. And then when you think about the fragmented IoT platforms, I sat through one of the sessions yesterday. I think it was the device security platform, and one of the participants on the panel mentioned that there's over 450 different cloud platforms today. So, that's mind-boggling, right? Fragmented platforms, there's platforms for applications, for vertical applications, for device security, for connectivity, the list goes on and on and on. And then when you think about the billions of devices that are out there, yes, billions of devices, we've seen the numbers, but they create billions of records, right? And so how do you take all that data, all that information, or all that data, convert it to information and knowledge? And then the last part is complex vertical applications. And how can we make that simpler? How can we build end-to-end solutions that then can be used as on a subscription model? And that's a big focus of what we've been doing at Verizon. It's trying to put those together and then basically make them a subscription model. So, I can't, I've got to talk about our network, obviously, when we talk about connectivity. So over the last 17 years, we've spent over $180 billion on our network. And, it's really proved the value when we look at, root metrics, these independent studies that have been done. And for 8 consecutive years, Verizon has been top in overall performance. And so there's other things that we've done. We've launched our LTE Advanced, which is really carrier aggregation. We have also, which is multiple channels, to increase the speed up to 50%. We've done that in 450 different cities. And then also from a coverage standpoint, 2.4 million square miles covering 98% of the population. So a lot of investment in the network, and obviously, probably the folks out here are going to say, well, yeah, that was all done for consumers. It's all for consumer traffic, and that's not really true because we've got over 30 million IoT devices on our network today. So what we've done in the last couple of years is really to focus more on IoT, and we've invested a lot into our network to do that. Network elements, and we've launched service for both what we call Cat 1, and that was in 2015, and then just this past year, Cat M1 in 2017. And those are 2 technologies, modules, chipsets, that kind of thing, that are really geared towards IoT. Lower cost per module, so we're talking about now getting down into the $10, sub $10 ranges. Much more power efficient with power saving mode and extended DRX. And then greater link budgets, so actually the coverage is improved through retries and that sort of thing. And being that it's built on a standard, 3GPP standard, we're talking about reliability, scalability, and secure connectivity, which is really important for most of the applications. So really what we're trying to do with this technology is really lower the cost of the barrier entry into the market. So that's what we have done recently, and we're not stopping there. Ken mentioned 5G. Obviously I told you about how our network is now, but with 5G, we've been really working that aggressively. So we've been actually doing 11 trials since last year. And really what we're going to start out is doing more of a fixed broadband, kind of think about a wireless fiber to begin with. But the promise of 5G and the intelligent network of 5G is really, really important. Things like extreme mobile broadband, critical machine communications, and massive IoT. That's really the direction that we want to be able to take it. So 5G is truly the network for IoT, and we're going to see a lot of value in that. Just to get into that a little bit more on what the vision of it is first and foremost, you got to think about the high speed, the extreme mobile broadband. We're talking about 10 gigabits per second speeds, 10,000 times the traffic. But really the other 2 that I want to focus more on is the low latency and the massive scale. And that's really where the IoT part of it comes in. Being able to have radio latency of less than 1 millisecond and really being able to do instant action, ultra reliability. So that's what brings out, the things that we talk about robotics, being able to do autonomous driving. That's the type of technology there. And then the massive scale part of it too. Large 10-year battery life, ultra low cost sensors, and a lot more devices out there. So there's some key functionality when you think about from 5G on what it's going to be able to do. First and foremost, we're talking about a much denser network, very, very dense, with a lot of femtocells, picocells, relays, device-to-device communications. So much more denser for in the cities. Second of all, I think Ken mentioned it as well, is network slicing. You'll be able to have this thing faded. Oh, it's back. Network slicing. So you'll be able to create a network slice for the high-speed mobile broadband type of operation, be able to create a network slice for the low latency critical communications, and then a slice for the massive scale. Also bringing in other non-cellular, typically non-cellular type technologies. So like in the 28 gigahertz range, being able to carry a lot more data. And then, so essentially that's the way we see, 5G is going to be really the true technology of the future. It's going to be the network that's going to be really built and scaled for IoT. The other challenge that we've run across is these multiple platform issue. I said 450 different platforms. So, you got cloud platforms from AWS, and you got Azure. You've got your security platforms. You've got your device management platforms. A lot of the OEMs have their own device management platforms, analytics platforms, all these different multiple platforms. Each one of them, so in order to do that, if somebody wants to deploy that, they've got to be able to handle individual licenses, do a lot more things. So really what our focus is to work and try to consolidate as much of that functionality into one platform to accelerate their time to market, to lower their deployment costs, and include their deployment costs and reduce their operating costs. So really that's one of the things that we have been working on, and it's still a work in progress, to be honest with you, but it's what we call our ThinkSpace platform. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but we had a development conference yesterday, and we really had some really good turnout. We really filled the room. And the developers in there were able to use some of the tools that we have from a connectivity and network management standpoint, device management standpoint, and then data management and SDKs and that kind of, all that type of functionality that we have. And really what we want to do with this platform is we extend that into our cloud partners, where then the enterprises, the application builders, the solution integrators, and developers can take advantage of these connectivity tools. Being able to do a firmware over the air, being able to ingest data off of APIs and create their own dashboard or create their own application. So that's the big challenge that we've been working on, is trying to really consolidate that and make that simpler. Part of it is on the hardware side too, and in that developer conference yesterday, we were actually worked really closely with one of our partners, which is Renesas. And so they brought in their S5 kit. We had a Cat M1 modem. So the developer teams, the folks that were in there were able to take this developer kit with some starter code, integrate it back into the ThinkSpace platform, and then do some basic testing and basic development. The whole focus of this is to really, the developer kit and what we're trying to do with ThinkSpace is to really accelerate that time to market. So give them the opportunity with the dev kits to start out with a proof of concept, move that to a preliminary design, and then reach final design and then final product layout. So both from a hardware standpoint and from a software standpoint. So that's what our developer conference was yesterday. And we're going to have multiple developer conferences, partnered real closely with Renaissance, and we've had these throughout the nation, and more than happy for any of you or your teams to attend these as well. So in summary, from the first two challenges that I talked about, number one, lower cost to connect. That's with Cat M1, Cat 1. Second of all, the ThinkSpace platform, where we want to try to consolidate as much functionality as we possibly can into one platform so developers don't have to go so many different places. And then the dev kits with our ThinkSpace client on them, that they can take advantage of our platform and the functionality to build their applications and build their devices. So that's the first two things. The next thing is security. And I've seen, there was a whole total tracks yesterday, and there's a bunch more tracks today when it comes to security. And we know, Ken hit on it as well. When you think about security, the model is completely changed when you think about IoT. Traditional IT is human-centric. You have a designated perimeter. When you get into IoT, it's a lot different. You got all kinds of devices. They're in weird spaces, weird locations. They can be stolen. How do you make sure they're trusted? Did somebody take something, a SIM out of it and put in something else? Updates and patches, and how do you make sure that they're, the operational management and the security part of it is, because it's a totally different model. And you think about that, especially when you think about like the connected car and all of the ways to get into the connected car today. It may be through the infotainment, it may be through the Bluetooth, it could be through the tire pressure. So there's just, the security model for that is totally different than it is from an IoT, IT standpoint. So what we recommend always is building security in from the start. And that really hasn't been done, or it's starting to more often now, but building in from the start. And first and foremost, making sure that the network that you put it on is secure. And that may be not only how the network is secure, but then what kind of topology. Like we can create private networks where the devices themselves are isolated from the internet and completely free of being touched by the internet. And then making sure the network has the tools in place for cyber detection and response. If they start seeing malicious activity, how can they isolate that? And then on the endpoint side as well, PKI, being able to provide certificates and to give it a trusted ID, trusted execution environment on the devices to make sure that intrusion detection, firewall, secure boot, those type of things. And then we always recommend, we have a team that does it as well on the professional services side. So pro services could be all around helping you design, helping you layer in that security architecture. It could be also assessment tests or penetration tests to make sure that what you built, what you deployed is secure. And so really the whole thing is put security paramount in the initial design part of what you're doing, and don't wait for it to be an after fact. The next challenge is, I mentioned billions of devices and billions of records. So this is where I truly believe the next phase of IoT is, and that's really in the artificial intelligence and the machine learning part. That's really where everything is going, because you take all this data that you have. For example, in our network, we have tons of data, start and stop records. We have reasons why devices disconnect. Just a wealth of data, but then what we've got to do is convert that data into information, bucketize it, classify it, and then use and create that into knowledge. And that's where the true value comes in. And I was sat through one of the presentations yesterday, and somebody had this exact same thing, although they had one extra tier on top of it, and that was wisdom. And I wish I would have. I left that part out because I didn't want to copy them. But they had wisdom on top of knowledge, and that's true. Having the wisdom at the very top to make decisions on what that is proactively or ahead of time, instead of after the fact. So one of the things that we have a platform that we call Orion. It's built on Hadoop, and you can take data sources from third parties. You can take it from internal systems like our network data. You bring that data in, you can extract it, transform it, and basically run it through different machine learning algorithms or artificial intelligence algorithms to create insight into that data. And some of the verticals that we're talking about that we really see a real positive area is in the advertising and marketing side. So it could be as simple as, what demographic, what's the likelihood of this demographic buying this certain product? It could be on the IoT services side, and we've actually done this. When it comes to agriculture, water usage for a particular cash crop, for example, vineyards. What is it? Because if you stress the vines a certain amount, the grapes are going to taste better and create better wine. Cybersecurity, I mentioned. Customer service, really making it easy to eliminate truck rolls with a green light, yellow light, red light on connectivity. So again, analytics to me is that's really where a lot of the future is. We got all the data in there now. Now what can we do with it? And then the final thing is a complex vertical solution. So what I mentioned before is not everyone has the resources or the capability to build these complex solutions. So what Verizon has been doing is we've been working on putting together end-to-end solutions that are really a subscription model. One of the perfect examples is in the utility side, and we call it grid-wide. So with grid-wide, we can do oil, gas, and water metering, smart metering, and essentially the whole solution is built, the private network, all the way back to the application. Really all the utilities do, the smaller utilities and the municipals, what they can do is they can buy their meters and then they can put them on that platform and with connectivity, and basically they can use that platform and get all their metering data just like a subscription model, so they can turn them off and turn them on. They don't have to build all that together. On the smart city side, we recently purchased Sensity, so we're talking about intelligent lighting, sensor management, intelligent video, and that kind of thing. And then telematics has been a big play for us too with our recent purchase of Fleetmatics Intelligence. So we're really playing in the space of being end-to-end, providing that complete solution so somebody doesn't have to come out there and build it themselves. And so that's pretty much all. Well, I'll summarize it again. Providing the challenges that we saw were providing connectivity for an increasing pool of devices. Talked about that, the privacy and security and how we try to handle that, and then the fragmented platforms with ThinkSpace, and then analytics around the billions of devices and the billions of records, and then the complex vertical applications, putting together these end-to-end solutions that really make it simpler for them. So I want to thank you very much. I think hopefully we had a lot of challenges with this, but I think we have a video that we're going to run, and then if we still have time, I can stick around for a couple of questions.
It started in this room in 1969. It came to homes and business in the 90s. It went mobile in the early 2000s. Now, it's everywhere you turn, used by everyone you see, but it's not stopping there. Everything around us can be connected to a global Internet of Things. It's fast, it's wireless, and it's not something from the future. It's already here. Welcome to Boston. This intersection of Beacon Street and Massachusetts Avenue has traditionally been difficult to manage. That could be about to change. Traffic cameras and sensors detect people, cars, and even bicycles. Using artificial intelligence and machine learning, they can control traffic signals, lighting, and are ready for the future of autonomous vehicles to reduce the possibility of accidents. A vineyard like this one produces over 1 million bottles of wine every year. That involves an enormous production of grapes and, in turn, enormous amounts of water. Sensors measure air temperature, soil moisture, water flow, and more to optimize irrigation settings. This saves water, prevents plant diseases, and reduces the need for chemical sprays. Tracking of medicine from the factory to customers has become an issue of paramount importance. Counterfeit and black market vaccines cost companies over $75 billion a year and put patient safety at risk. Small, connected sensors keep track of not only where vaccines are shipped, but their temperature and condition as well, making sure that the vaccines arrive safely, exactly where they were meant to. These examples just scratch the surface. Smart energy grids save energy and promote sustainability. Fleet management tracks assets and creates efficiencies. Connected drones perform inspections safely and cost-effectively. All these technologies will change the way we work, live, even play. But they don't just happen. It takes massive infrastructure like widespread fiber networks, investments to reach even the most rural areas, and technology like small cells to make sure it's all fast, high capacity, and reliable. It may all sound a lot like the future, but the fact is, it's already here. Because we don't wait for the future. We build it.
Great.
Well, then,
Give Warren a round of applause.
Thank you very much.